This is a big one I want to read. Prehistoric mounds leveled to provide factory sites. Now, again, many of the exhibitions that have taken place on the Mississippi have been built on mound complexes, and many sites of cities were occupied as giant mound complexes. Um, I believe this one was from the same time frame as the previous 19. I think it was either 1918 or 1920, something around there. In an attempt to answer the century-old riddle of the origin of 60 or more earth mounds in Cahokia District in Madison County, Illinois, across the Mississippi River from St. Louis, Warren K. Moorhead, same gentleman, professor of archaeology at Phillips Andover Academy, recently completed excavations on one of the larger of the mounds, says a writer in the Christian Science Monitor. That's too far. There we go. His explorations were financed by Eastern museums and schools and private individuals. Why is that always the case? And we're not talking Eastern like New York or Boston. We're talking Europe. Again, this is what was happening. We had the Duke or the King of Sweden. I can't remember exactly if it was Colorado or New Mexico, who was arrested for stealing relics. The Europeans were over here, and they were grave robbing for 50 years before anyone was doing anything about it. Even the governor of Colorado was pleading with the federal government to protect his ruins and relics because the Smithsonian and Eastern museums, quote, Eastern museums, were freely stealing mummies, tearing down buildings, and stealing relics, and he could do nothing about it. Europe, that's not what Eastern means. Yeah, I'm aware of it doesn't that's not what it means. But if you've seen enough of my material, I quote the quote Eastern idea is relative to European um, involvement in the excavation of many of these mounds, American Southwest as well. Digging a secondary purpose, the stimulation of interest in the mounds in an attempt to obtain legislation for their inclusion in a state park. Otherwise, they would fall before the invasion of the East St. Louis Industrial District, as did similar mounds in St. Louis. Again, Mound City of St. Louis, as we know it, was completely destroyed. They were all excavated. Only a few months ago, an industrial corporation obtained an option on the site of Monk's Mound, the largest in the group, for a manufacturing plant, but the deal fell through. The mounds are, and according to Mr. Moorhead, the greatest prehistoric monument in America. The mounds are to America what Stonehenge is to England, continued Mr. Moorhead. The Englishman was deaf to the warning that Stonehenge was about to be destroyed under P.T. Barnum's announcement that he was going to buy it and carry it off to New York. If I were to announce that I was going to load Cahokia on a flat car and take it to Boston Common, then Cahokia might be saved. Proof conclusive of the artificiality of the mounds was established early by the excavations, which revealed 3 hard-burned platforms in the mound explored. It was apparent that the work of piling up the mound stopped at one period, and the top was burned over with a fire of sufficient intensity to fuse and bake the earth to a thickness of several inches. Now we find correlations again with the American Southwest, where they talked about many of those ancient buildings being burnt. And we're not talking like burnt like clay, like burnt by some crazy event. I wouldn't even go as far as to say as it was volcanic, although it definitely could have been. Um, I lean more towards plasma, and we're going to get into a um, petrified forest that extends for many miles along this area, kind of strengthening what I've been showing through Colorado, New Mexico, Utah, where we're dealing with some kind of an electrical event that petrified hundreds of square miles instantly, with fruit still clinging to the branches of some of these trees. Look back at my Anomalous America Oregon episode. In southeastern Oregon, they find a petrified forest with leaves and fruit still attached to the trees, and it was 30 square miles, at least 30 to 50 square miles. Um, several inches. Mr. Moorhead's interpretation of these plateaux is that they were ceremonial or dance floors. This correlates again with the stone cut pyramid of Texas, that when they removed all of the earth that was over 13 inches deep covering the pyramid, they called it a mound. And then they were like, this is a pyramid. It's not a mound once they removed all the earth. And they found the petrified, quote, dance floor that was the top of this pyramidal structure. Floors used in religious rites. Corroboration of this theory, he pointed out, was the existence of one of the floors of a depression or basin of half baked clay, such as frequently has been found elsewhere in the valley and established as sacrificial altars. Prehistoric seat of culture. Another important discovery was the finding of a bit of pottery and of higher grade in the ceramic art than the common run unearthed. This bit had a perceptible glaze and a distinct design, a circle within which slight tracings cross at right angles. This indicates, said Mr. Moorhead, that Cahokia was the seat of culture of the mound builders who erected their monuments throughout the Mississippi Valley. The prehistoric peoples are judged by their ceramic art. No other mound builders had progressed to the art of glazing. Now, this ties nicely again with the quote Greek pottery that they were finding in not only New Mexico, Arizona, but also Alaska. And they called it the most advanced pottery that exists on the American continent, and related it to Grecian pottery. Again, this correlates with Etruscan. When you study Grecian pottery, it's all Etruscan. It comes from Etruria, and again, I've been correlating the Etruria Punic phonetic correlation, and that the quote Aztecs were Etruria or Etruscan half breeds. This ties back into Atlantis and all of these things as well. But yeah, this advanced pottery. The deeper you go, the more advanced the pottery gets, just like the constructions. But I'm going to hop ahead here to mounds being destroyed. The last to go, according to Henry Whelpley, chairman of the Committee of Archaeology of the Missouri Historical Society, was the mound at the intersection of Mound Street and Broadway in 1869. Speculation about the origin of the mounds was even greater then than now. The St. Louis Academy of Science, thinking to throw light on whether the mounds were natural or man-made. Again, it's just crazy that they think these things were natural. You know, as we said, these explorations into these mounds had been going on for quite some time, and hence determine whether efforts should be made to save the last of them. Brought a geologist to St. Louis to examine it. In the records of the Academy, there is an entry which declares that the geologist proved conclusively that the mound was natural. To be thought and sure, the Academy employed another geologist, and the entry on his report is that he too authoritatively stated that the mound was not the work of man but nature. Now they go on to state that they had these people falsifying these claims because people like the Santa Fe Railroad had trouble permitting buying mounds that were man-made. So if it was natural, if it was a natural hill, it was much easier to get um, their constructions permitted. And all you had to do was pay the right person to say that the mound that's obviously not man or not natural was man-made, or that it was not man-made. My apologies, and that it was natural, and you could just plow the thing flat and run off with all the relics and build your railroad.